Hello everyone, it's D to the B here, and I'm here to talk about Superman 2025. Oh, I've seen this movie twice by the time of this recording. I've seen it in theaters, and I've seen it illegally. And, oh boy, I have thoughts about it, and they're pretty similar thoughts on both watches of the movie. So, Superman was one of the films I was actually looking forward to with James Gunn's universe. I was actually very optimistic about Gunn's universe because I am so sick of the MCU at this point. It has gotten really, really bad. The MCU is not getting better. The shills, on the other hand, will say, oh, the MCU is getting better. But it really isn't. Like, the MCU is basically about the same state as it was when Phase 4 started. But enough about Disney. The question is Superman a better movie than the MCU? Is DC gonna take down the MCU and DC's universe will save the superhero brand as a whole and will keep getting superhero movies, franchise, or the genre is saved? It's really hard to tell. This movie for me is like the biggest mixed bag that I've seen in my life. Now, people are gonna debate if the movie is good or not. I think it's a mix. Like, there are things that I like about the movie, but then there's a lot of things I don't like about the movie at the same time. There are certainly good elements, but granted, that doesn't make it a good movie either. So, why don't I explain why it's such a mixed bag for me? So the movie starts off with the Arctic, and there's some cards to read on the movie saying that Superman landed on the planet of Earth. He's never lost a fight until now. This is the first fight he lost. And then we see Superman crash to the ground, and he is injured from this mysterious fight we didn't get to see. Superman's hurt like really bad. It's to the point where blood is coming out of his mouth. He whistles and he summons Krypto, his dog. The dog that many people were excited for, and I thought would be an interesting concept for a Superman movie, since Krypto hasn't really appeared in a Superman movie that I'm aware of. Besides Super Pets, I'm never watching that. So Krypto comes to Superman and starts beating him up, like jumping all over him. And what the movie expects you to go is like, ha ha ha, Superman's getting beat up by his dog. It's so hilarious. I never found the scene hilarious, not even when the clip was revealed. I'm like, what is this? No one wants to see Superman get beat up by his dog. Like, sure, disobedient dogs can be really, really funny. Just dogs causing multiple problems, because it's relatable to an extent. But I just don't think it works for Superman, and especially since Krypto is hopping everywhere, just injuring Superman even more than he already needs to be. Then after Krypto's done with his playful mood, Superman grabs the back of his cape and he's like, take me home. Where Krypto then grabs his cape and starts dragging him to Superman's lair, and these robots come to help heal Superman. They put him on a chair, they have a magnifying glass, and he starts to begin to heal because the power of the sun is what gives him his powers. Now, a friend of mine, the time I went to go see this in theaters, actually made a really good point. Like, he is outside where there's the sun, so why did we need this magnifying glass? And I'm like, that's actually a point I never even thought of. That is a really good point. So then we transition to the title card, and we're seeing the mayhem of this mysterious villain at the time just wreaking havoc on the city. And then we transition back to the Arctic, where Superman has to leave so he can defend Metropolis from this mysterious threat. At the same time that Superman is flying out, we see the engineer walking through the Arctic to figure out where Superman's location is, and she's in contact with Lex Luthor. Now, I've never heard of the Engineer in any source material. This is the first time I've heard of her. I still need to read a bunch of the old DC comics. But yeah, I don't know if she's a modern character who's been around since the beginning. Never heard of this character whatsoever. Lex Luthor, as soon as she finds out where it is, says to return to base immediately. Superman then enters Metropolis to save Metropolis from kicked his butt the first time. To start to fight, but of course it does not go well. Superman ends up being beaten again by the device, and this random citizen starts to decide to help Superman get out of the rubble. But of course the bad guy gets away, and that's where the scene ends. And of course, then we transition to LexCorp, where it's revealed that the strange being that Superman was up against was a character known as Ultraman. And also Lex Luthor is explaining that with his help with beings like Ultraman and the Engineer, which were specially modified to go up against Superman, they can take back the world. But of course, they disagree because many people love Superman, and Lex Luthor's like, he's an alien that needs to get out of here. And they also mention, what about the metahumans? And Lex is like, at least the metahumans are from Earth. And after this whole conversation, we transition to Superman as his secret identity, Clark Kent, where Clark Kent is late for work and enters the building of the Daily Planet. While he's trying to get to work, he gets a call from his mother and father. And I will admit, this part was actually kind of funny, just hearing the whole conversation, even though there was a bunch of weird stuff that was happening in Clark Kent scenes in this part of the movie. But then he eventually hangs up, and of course he's trying to work. Lois Lane actually brought up a good point. It's how convenient that you were out while Superman was saving the world, and now you're back. And then we get a whole news report about this war going on in the country of Bravia. Clark Kent makes the comments that he thinks the leader of Bravia is putting on a fake accent, says that's what Superman thinks when I interviewed him. And Lois Lane said that how convenient that you always get good interviews with Superman. And then the two decide. But after that, we transition back with Lex Luthor and Ultraman and the Engineer, who are heading to Superman's secret location in the Arctic to find out some information and dirt that they could put on Superman. Of course, the Engineer takes down all the security of the Fortress of Solitude, and the Engineer starts decoding the message that was left for Superman when he landed on Earth, which I totally forgot to mention that he was also listening to the message of his parents, and he was getting healed. I guess that was a detail I forgot. And the Engineer starts decoding all the information, and then also they capture Crypto the dog at the same time, where then we get to see some of Lex Luthor's henchmen release this strange little beast, which the next morning grows. And it's like a whole joke, like, that's a little thing, and it's like, don't worry, it will get bigger. And then the next day, it got bigger. And Superman's trying to take down this thing and save the day. But of course, it's not going as well as he wanted to. And then we get the cameos from the three other superheroes that appear in this movie. Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. And they begin to help Superman, and eventually Mr. Terrific throws grenades or bombs into the creature's stomach and kills it by blowing the stomach up. And Superman has to basically save the city from getting destroyed because, yeah, they didn't think that through for some reason. And Superman also saves a bunch of kids at the same time as they're fighting this monster. But then we get one of the worst reveals in the movie. I mean, I'm not even a comic book fan, and I'm mad about this. Like, we find out that Lex Luthor translated the rest of the message that was lost. And it turns out that Superman's parents sent him to Earth to keep him safe and also to repopulate the planet with Kryptonians. His mom even said to take multiple wives to rebuild their race. And of course, people are mad. We even have some mothers take their children away from Superman to keep them safe from him because apparently he's the bad guy in this version, or to at least to them he is. And after this whole scene, people are like throwing stuff at him and booing at him, and he goes in this building and Green Lantern, Hawkeye, and Mr. Terrific follow him, and Green Lantern has to push like this wall made out of his ring so people don't see him, and they start talking to him, and Superman's like, this message has to be altered in some way, and Mr. Terrific's like, no, it wasn't. And then Hawkgirl makes an actually interesting point, like, how did they get the message? Where'd they get it from? So then Superman flies off, goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and notices that the base has been broken into, and all of the robots have been destroyed. And then also calls for Krypto. Then we transition to the next scene where Lex Luthor is having a meeting, but then Superman crashes through the door, and then starts shouting and trying to interrogate Lex Luthor, going like, where's the dog? Where's the dog? And it's just like this stupid thing, and especially since he's being filmed by Lex Luthor's girlfriend, which I forgot to mention. We have an influencer character in this movie, and it is so stupid. Like, I mean, she comes kind of into use, like, later on in the film, but so far she is just a really, really dumb character, and I don't know why she needed to exist, to be honest with you. She is that useless until the final act. But Lex Luthor is like, I didn't take the dog. He also murmurs something about the dog into his cup, and Superman's like, what? And he's like, I said nothing. And it's this whole thing. Then, of course, it gets posted to social media where people saying he's defensive. The news is spreading this whole thing. And then also at the same time, later on, there's this giant eyeball monster outside, and Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and I'm guessing Mr. Terrific are taking care of it, as Superman is doing nothing because he's mopey that his family turned out to be evil, and also that he's being attacked by all these people on cancel culture. And then he's like, I'm gonna turn myself in, make this all better, yada yada yada. Then we transition to Superman being taken down by Ultraman, and Superman's like, I am surrendering willingly. Was that really necessary? And they begin to take Superman to a helicopter, where the helicopter eventually lands at this camp that Lex Luthor has made. And it also turns out that Lex Luthor has made this pocket dimension, and also has the character known as Element Man, who can create any sort of object like kryptonite, and is basically using it on Superman to keep him weakened. Then we transition to Jimmy saying that he knows where Superman is because Jimmy is in ties with influencer girl, as I'm gonna call her in this review. And Lois Lane is happy about it. She also meets up with the Justice Gang, as they're called, instead of the Justice League. And everyone is against helping Superman because he's supposedly evil. And we also not only have Superman mocked in this movie, we also have Green Lantern mocked a bit in this movie, because there is a joke that kind of pissed me off when Hawkgirl says every time Green Lantern doesn't want to do something, is that it's a part of his code of honor. And I just rolled my eyes at this part, because the Green Green Lanterns do have a code that they do have to follow. But nope, they had to make a joke out of it because they can, even though they shouldn't. It's stupid. Anyway, Lois Lane decides to leave, but then Mr. Terrific then goes and decides to help her. And then we get another MCU-ified joke where it's this garage opening, but it's moving super slow, and we're supposed to laugh at the garage raising because it's so funny. Laugh, audience, laugh! It's so funny, I love it! Gosh, I'm so sick of MCU humor. Gosh darn it, Gunn. Also, I don't remember if this was mentioned when we meet Element Man, but there's also the detail that the people who were making the cancel culture tweets were actually mutant monkeys. No, I'm not kidding. This is an actual thing. I don't know why they did this, and I just rolled my eyes when they did this. Now, people can make an argument that this seems like something they would do in the original DC comics, which, you know what? Fair. I'll give you that. Apparently, there's a couple of issues where Superman fights a gorilla multiple times. I'm not even kidding. Just look up Superman fights a gorilla comics, and you'll find tons of results of a comic where Superman fights a gorilla. It's not even funny. I mean, actually, it kind of is because they made multiple of them. Apparently, Superman fighting a gorilla is so popular that they've done it multiple times. But anyway, continuing on, Element Man is still doing the kryptonite thing to keep Superman down. And, of course, Superman keeps asking him questions because also Element Man's helping because Lex Luthor is threatening his child. And Element Man's done with Superman's questions, so he comes closer with the kryptonite and starts burning it with him by pushing it up close to his face. And then Lex Luthor brings in the random citizen that helped earlier in the movie and decides to play Russian roulette, but with only one guy doing it. He would spin the gun, and it might shoot, it might not, but then the second time he does it, he kills the guy, which just makes the whole thing of making Superman answer questions stupid, especially when he makes a joke. Wow, that was much shorter than I expected. I'm like, oh my gosh, please stop. Please stop. But anyway, Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane make it to Lex Luthor's camp, and Mr. Terrific has this device tracking where Superman has gone, and then also we get an action scene of Mr. Terrific fighting all these guys. They eventually make it into the pocket dimension portal, but he also mentions that you should never make a pocket dimension portal because it can be very unstable and also rip a black hole into where the Earth is supposed to be. So they go through the portal to find Superman. At the same time, Element Man helps Superman escape by changing his hand back from the kryptonite just to his hand, and then after that he starts making something like a sun so Superman can get his strength back. We transition to Lois Lane and Mr. Terrific finding the pocket dimension portal that Lex Luthor has made to go to his pocket dimension. And Mr. Terrific says that having a pocket dimension is not a good thing because if you're not careful and open it multiple times or have it open long enough, it would absolutely destroy the Earth and a black hole would take the Earth's place. Then Mr. Terrific, after telling Lois Lane that, has his orbs or drones try to hack into the computer of the pocket dimension portal. Then we transition back where Superman is healed enough where he can break out of the prison, which he does, and starts taking on a bunch of Lex Luthor's security in the pocket dimension, and Element Man is helping, and Superman's also trying to get Element Man's baby out because once Element Man does something, which later we find out that blows up his whole body and he's like this tentacle monster thing, and Superman crashes where the Twitter monkeys are to get Crypto out because they had a simulation for Crypto. chasing space squirrels. No, I'm not kidding. I can't remember if I mentioned that detail either. Soon as Superman breaks it, Krypto starts tackling Superman and licking him all over the place and saying to be careful for the baby. And then we transition back to Mr. Terrific, who's using his drones to try to find Superman, but of course they're not successful. Eventually, the two begin to escape the prison again, where Element Man blows up his body, and eventually Mr. Terrific's drones find Krypto, and Krypto attacks the orb because, yeah, bad dog, yada yada. Also, at the same time, the pocket dimension portal is collapsing upon itself because you're not supposed to have it open for long, as I said earlier. And he's like, this is why you don't create a pocket dimension. But then Superman and the baby and Element Man and Krypto are in this wave pool, which leads into a black hole, and then Superman has to use his epic powers to get all of them out of here, including Krypto, and he even grabs Krypto's arm and flies away from the black hole, which, the way they do it, like, yeah, that dog's shoulders dislocated. I'm like, no, this is dumb. Like, I think even with a super dog, yeah, Krypto is gonna have some sort of injury from that. Because animals don't have as strong of bones as humans do. It's a pretty common fact. People could say, oh, but Krypto's a super dog. Well, Superman is a Superman. So yeah, it doesn't count. It's still stupid. But anyway, they escape, and then Mr. Terrific spots them all. We get another MCU joke. And eventually, all three of them escape from the portal, and Krypto gets a hand of one of Mr. Terrific's drones and chews it, and Mr. Terrific gets upset. But then Krypto tries biting at him. But of course, Superman is still weak, so Lois Lane is going to take Superman to his parents' house. Mr. Terrific is going to try to fix the pocket dimension, and Element Man's going wherever he's going. Then we transition to the Clark house, where Lois Lane brings Superman to his parents, and they lay him on his bed. And of course, Clark's dad is very worried, and his mom explains that he's a very worried man, especially when it comes to Clark. Then at some point we transition back to Mr. Terrific, and the portal is beginning to become too unstable because Lex Luthor in the previous scene had a temper tantrum. Yeah, I forgot that. Oh my gosh, what did they do to Lex Luthor? So there's a whole problem with how they execute Lex Luthor in this movie. He seemed like he was accurate to the character as possible, but then once Superman escapes, after that, he becomes a whiny crybaby toddler. And it just doesn't suit the character of Lex Luthor whatsoever. Like, what did they do to Lex Luthor? Now, people could say, but he was upset. Well, that's the thing, though. Even upset, Lex Luthor's purpose is to stay calm. Like, he is one of Superman's only brain-type villains besides Brainiac. He's not supposed to be this toddler when you win. He's supposed to think his strategies calmly. He's a strong businessman who's trying to destroy Superman. Like, if you bring up, like, the Justice League cartoon, he is calm through every scenario that is thrown his way. And I think even Batman Brave and the Bold. It was Justice League or Batman Brave and the Bold. I have to look back on the show. But there was an episode where Superman was, like, under the control of Lex Luthor, and at the end of the episode, Batman and Superman switch places so that Superman can defeat Lex Luthor, because Lex Luthor had a thing of kryptonite. And he was even calm when he lost to Superman. And in Justice League, even in the alternate timeline, where Superman kills Lex Luthor. After that, the Justice League becomes the Justice Lords. Like, Lex Luthor was even calm with that. even when he was about to die. So yeah, it's just weird and out of character for Lex Luthor. Also, Influencer Girl was taken by Lex Luthor because she ratted him out and she was being loud in the janitor's closet, I would assume, is where she is. And Ultraman hears her and she sends the images to Jimmy. Yeah, pretty much. We wake up eventually. I continue on where I left off before I forgot things. We transition to Superman waking up the next morning and he is all better and Krypto is on top of him sleeping. And of course, this is going to be adorable. You know, dogs are like that. Sure, whatever. Then we transition to probably one of the few scenes I liked in this film. And it's when Clark Kent and his dad have a conversation. And his dad's saying, like, parents, we do what we can so our kids can be, like, better than us or learn from us. And I really liked that speech. I thought it worked in the movie. It was one of the few moments where I actually cared about the characters for a bit. Like, one of the few times. Like, that's the thing, and I'm gonna get more into it, but this movie has so much potential. But let's continue on. So then, after their conversation, Clark goes into the house and notices that the country that is a big part of this movie is starting to invade the other country. I feel like I'm Kamala Harris explaining this. But of course, this kid is raising this Superman flag, and Superman's gonna go save the day at the country, but then he gets called by Mr. Terrific, and Mr. Terrific says that there's not going to be anything if he doesn't come to Metropolis and save the city from falling apart and becoming a black hole. So Superman starts heading there, and Mr. Terrific tries to keep the planets stable, but of course it's not working. And at the same time, Superman is he is stopped by both the Mechanic and Ultraman. And of course, the three fight each other, and it's a pretty decent fight. I mean, it's better than the fight scenes in the modern MCU anyway, so yeah, it is leagues better than that. It's pretty decent. A good fight for once, if anything. So then, of course, after Ultraman and the Mechanic basically put him down, Lex Luthor tells Mechanic to put microbots into Superman's system, which would disable everything of Superman. His laser vision, his lungs, his everything. Nothing would be able to stop him. But Superman, of course, flies into the air where both Ultraman and the Mechanic are following him. Of course, Superman can handle the pressure of going into the atmosphere, but neither Ultraman or the Mechanic are able to. They eventually catch up to him, where then, they all kind of freeze a bit, and then all three of them crash back into the surface of the planet. Of course, the Mechanic somehow survives this. She should be dead, knowing that she is not what Ultraman is, but we're going to get into. And it turns out that Ultraman is a clone of Superman. Now, before I did research, I was like, has he always been a clone of Superman? Because I haven't seen Ultraman in anything, but apparently, according to my research, in some continuities of the DC comics, Ultraman is a Superman clone. Now, I can't find anything on who Ultraman is in other comics, but I did look it up. The character was created in August 1964. So he definitely is an old DC character, not one of these modern characters that are pushed in the comics. Similar issue to Marvel. But continuing on, Ultraman and Superman fight it out. And it is like this epic scene while the Earth is splitting apart. Mr. Terrific's trying to keep everything together. Superman at one point calls Krypto to weaken Ultraman, and doesn't go well. They keep fighting. Superman's arm gets dislocated at some point, and Superman, with the advantage of a bus that is coming down to the ground, throws Ultraman into the bus, crashing down, going into the black hole, and Ultraman is defeated, and Superman pops his shoulder back in. Mr. Terrific does a joke, like, what are you doing here, playing around we got a world to save. And Superman's like, I'm not playing around. I'm just doing more important things. And in the stupidest way possible. I really hate the humor in this movie. I really, really do. At the same time, I did forget this detail. While that's going on, Green Lantern has made it to the country that's being invaded, and he's just taking care of all the war tanks. And then Hawkgirl also takes care of the leader of the country, and also Lois Lane, with the help of Jimmy, figures out Lex Luthor's plan, which he wants to become king of this country, which is stupid because, Lex Luthor wants to be the ruler of the earth, but I don't think he wants to be king. That is just ridiculous. Can't take it seriously. Lex Luthor doesn't take me as a king figure, he takes me as a dictator figure. And also, at the same time, they're flying Mr. Terrific ship, and also Jimmy's publishing the story. Then we get to the final battle with Superman and Lex Luthor. And that's just Superman crashing through the window, and they basically have a talk, or shouting at each other. And Lex Luthor's and starts ranting about how Superman is an alien and everyone praises him. And then Superman's like, that's your problem because I'm more human than any other human or something. And he gets scared, he laughs, he cries. And I'll say, it's a sweet moment, but that leads into another issue I have with the movie. And that is the whole thing. And this is James Gunn's fault, by the way, because he said it. The whole Superman is an immigrant thing. Yes, this is an actual thing. Look up Superman is an immigrant or something like that, and you'll probably find some results of what I'm talking about. Because James Gunn decided to open his big mouth and say that Superman is an immigrant in this universe. And of course, some people have gotten upset with people criticizing that factor of the movie. I remember on Instagram, seeing this guy react to Fox News, and he just got triggered over Fox News, saying that the whole immigrant thing was stupid. And he started having a temper tantrum about it. Say what you want about Fox News. I'm particularly not a fan of Fox News. I'm not a fan of any of the media. They all suck. The media is just awful, no matter what side of the aisle you go on. But he starts complaining about, he's always been an immigrant. Why are they complaining about this now? And here's the thing, though. I'm going to say this. I never took Superman as an immigrant. I don't even think he counts as an immigrant because he's not from Earth. He's a complete different being from a different planet that got destroyed at some point. So I don't think that Superman is an immigrant or would even count, because there's a whole thing with immigration laws, and of course immigration laws don't go to actually space. Just the concept of calling Superman an immigrant is just stupid in my opinion, because that was never an issue that was really touched in any other source material, unless if it was modern stuff, which we don't count that, because the people who write the modern stuff really don't care about the source material whatsoever. So modern source material, no matter if it's DC or Marvel, can't be trusted. But then, of course, Lex Luthor's like, but it doesn't matter. The government put me in charge to get rid of you. If it's not today, it's going to be tomorrow. And then Krypto just tackles him. And that's the most jump-scary scene ever in a superhero film. Okay, maybe the whole scene with Doc Ock is probably more scarier than this, but I just didn't see this coming. Krypto just comes and tackles Lex Luthor like it's a jump scare scene in a horror movie, which caught me off guard when I saw it. I'm like, gosh. And of course Krypto is just throwing Lex Luthor all over the place on the ground, and it's perceived as this funny scene. And then Lex Luthor gets up, and one of Lex Luthor's team members points out the news report, which reveal details about how Lex Luthor is a traitor to the country and trying to frame Superman, and all the tweets were a bunch of monkeys on keyboards, which is still stupid. And then we get a cameo from James Gunn's brother saying, like, This is one thing that Republicans and Democrats can agree on is Lex Luthor sucks. I mean, it's sort of funny, but at the same time, like, leave that stuff out of this. Like, it's dumb. Just don't. So then, Lex Luthor is automatically arrested for treason against the U.S. And that's Lex Luthor beaten. The day is saved. Lois Lane and Superman make up. They go into this abandoned mall. They have their kiss scene. We even get a sort of funny moment where the head of the Daily Planet is like, so how long have they been together? And Jimmy answers like a few months, I would say. And then we go back to the Fortress of Solitude where Superman is going to heal up and relax a bit more. But at the same time, Supergirl comes and then picks up Krypto, and she's like super drunk. And Krypto is just like doing the same thing that he's been doing to Superman, which explains why he's disobedient in this universe. And then it ends with Superman after she leaves with the videos of Clark Kent's parents, his human family, not his Krypton family, because they completely assassinated the characters of Superman's parents, his like biological parents, and that's where the movie ends. That's a stupid credit scene where Mr. Terrific and Superman are looking at this building, and it doesn't seem like it's in line, but of course Mr. Terrific gets upset and yada yada yada, and then that's the end of the movie. Thank goodness. Oh my gosh. What happened? What happened to this film? This film had so much potential, and it was just ruined. Like, I was actually hyped for this movie. Like, I thought that James Gunn could fix the DC. Like, even as a Snyder fan, yes, I'm a Snyder fan, how dare I knew that Zack Snyder version of DC was not perfect. I like some of their installments, but most of them I can acknowledge are pretty bad. And I was hoping that James Gunn could fix it, but I don't know. Like, this film has good ideas, and the cast did everything to put their all into this movie, and I appreciate it, guys. But the story is not great. Like, there are some parts that work in the movie. Like, I think the whole introduction with Superman, even though a presentation about how Superman always saves the day would have been nice, I think the introduction of the film was pretty good. Even though the build up to Superman losing a fight was not earned whatsoever, but it was a still cool segment. But then it kind of just fell off once it got to the interview stuff, because Superman was just being too defensive with his interview, and then also the cancel culture stuff, which that's a whole separate issue. And the film has its ups and downs. Like, this film isn't terrible, but I wouldn't recommend it completely. I would suggest being open-minded that you may or may not like the movie. I've seen both people on both sides, like, I hate this movie, I like this movie. I've seen both. It's not that great in my opinion. I'm in the middle ground. I might lean towards more the people who hate it, because there's a lot I don't like about this movie. Some of the character decisions, some of the writing, like one of the things I did say earlier was how they handled Superman's parents. I thought that was stupid, that they would change the characterization of these characters to basically frame them as the bad guys, and Superman was sent to repopulate the planet of Krypton, which is not at all what the story was. The story was to get Clark Kent saved from the disaster of Krypton getting destroyed. Even Man of Steel got that right. But yeah, there were so many elements that they made in this movie I just didn't like. But of course, again, I don't completely hate it. I think it has its promises, but it's not a good film. I'll give it this. It's better than Superman 3 and 4. I'll give it that. But It's not one of the great ones. Personally, for me, I still prefer Man of Steel. And also, I don't even think I would even put this in my collection of DVDs. Like, I like collecting physical media, especially lately since they've been trying to get rid of it. I'm getting as much as I can. But this movie, I don't think I would want anything physical media about it. I don't even think I want it on digital. It's just, I don't care about the movie that much. I don't think it's good enough where I would want that in my collection. It would probably maybe just be an occasional watch here and there, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it. But that's how I feel. How do you feel about the new Superman movie? Tell me in the comments.